One of the most valuable lessons that I ever learned was that investing in yourself is the most valuable investment that you can make in your life. And by the end of this video, you're going to be jumping out of your seat, ready to invest in yourself, because we're going to walk you through that. We're going to talk about how investing in yourself is actually much more tactical than you might think. We're going to talk about how I invested in myself and the results of that. And we're going to talk about how my clients invest in themselves and the results of that. My name is Sean. I'm a mental health coach. I see 40 plus clients a week. I have a 98% satisfaction score from over 1,500 ratings. So I know that it sounds sort of cheesy, that it's like, oh, you just need to invest in yourself because you're a beautiful diamond and you just need to uncover the rough. But the truth is that it's actually very tactical. So let me show you what I mean. So let's say that you take $1,000 and you invest it in the S&P 500. And the S&P 500 has an average of about a 10% return. So in a year, you would make about $100. So at the end of that year, you would have about $1,100. Now let's say that you are working a job that makes around $14 an hour, and you invest $1,000 into a skill that allows you to go from $14 to, let's be conservative, let's say that you get a job that pays $20 an hour. That pay raise gets you around $1,000 a month. So over the course of a year, you would actually get a return of about $11,000 because you spent $1,000 in order to get the skill. So what that means is if you spent $1,000 and you made $12,000, then your return over the course of a year was 1,100% instead of the 10% return that you would get from the S&P 500. Do you see how tactical and insanely valuable it is to invest in yourself? Okay, Sean, so if investing in yourself is so amazing, then how come everybody doesn't do it? Well, because it's way scarier. It is way easier to take a bunch of money, put it in the S&P 500 and let it sit there, because then you get free money. It's way harder and scarier to invest in yourself because essentially you are betting on yourself. You're betting that, hey, I am going to be good enough to be able to capitalize on this investment. And that is really scary. And so a lot of people don't face it. And so if you want help facing that fear and investing in yourself, I'll leave a link down in the description where you can have a free 50-minute session with me. So let me get into a little bit of detail about how I originally learned this lesson. So before I was a coach, I worked customer service, and I was working the customer service job. And even though I was one of the best performers by the metrics, for about 3 years, I didn't get promoted. Even though I was actively asking for promotions and everything, they just weren't moving me up. And so eventually I left and started to invest in myself by building my own business. And in about 3 years, I more than tripled my income from that last job. And what that showed me is, it is way more valuable to invest in myself than trying to sort of play the rat race that everyone else is trying to play. And hey, don't get me wrong. Not every investment that you make is going to be a big hit. Not every investment you make is going to have an 1,100% return. In fact, you may lose on some of your investments. So for instance, when I was younger, I streamed on Twitch for about 10 years, and I never became a big successful streamer. That investment did not pan out. And at the same time, I learned how to make content. I learned how to build community. I learned how to make people feel safe, heard, and understood. I learned how to run a newsletter, which, by the way, all of the things that I'm naming, I use in my current business. And the newsletter, I have a newsletter for my business where I just send out, you can see this video early. You can see next week's video early if you want to see it. You can see articles that I put out. I'll leave a link down in the description that you can check that out if you want to. And so all of these different investments, even my first few clients came from my streaming community. And so even though it was not an investment that ultimately panned out, all of the lessons that I learned from it, all of the skills that I attained from it were well worth the investment. And I'm not some special magical being that things magically work out for, because coaching is actually a huge investment in yourself, and I see the return on the investment from my clients all the time. So I'll give you a few examples. The first one is I work with a lot of clients on things like budgeting, where I will just go through their budget with them and help them to optimize it. And I have taken clients from budgets that were in the negatives by hundreds of dollars. And we have, just by making a few tweaks, we have changed that so that their budget is hundreds of dollars in the positive. So that is, let's say it was like $400 in the negative, and we brought it to $400 in the positive. That is $800 a month, if we're doing budgeting monthly, $800 a month that is back in their pocket, even once they stop coaching. The second thing is that I've had clients that were studying for their driving permit test. And because they didn't have their driver's license, they were spending all sorts of money on food delivery, on lifting or Ubering around town to get rides everywhere. And they were spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars on that. And by getting their permit, all of that money went back in their pocket. And then finally, similar to the example that I gave earlier, I have worked with people who had jobs that were paying like $14 an hour. And through helping them to job hunt and apply for things that they thought that they weren't qualified for, they ended up getting jobs that would pay like $24 an hour, which, by the way, if you do the math on that, I'm going to pause the video and do the math on that, and then I will magically come back knowing the number. Hold on one second. Okay, I've done the math, and it equates to a $1,600 a month return on investment. So if we take that $1,600 and multiply it by 12, it's $19,200 a year that this person got just for applying to different jobs. And so these are some examples that I want to give you of how profitable investing in yourself can be, how it is one of the best investments that you can make. And by the way, investing in yourself doesn't just have to be with money. I've already given some examples, but just to be explicit about it, you can also invest in yourself with time. So for instance, when I first started building my business, I invested a whole bunch of time looking into business content that was just on YouTube completely free. And by doing that, I tripled my income over the course of 3 years. It is definitely a huge part of what contributed to that. And these are only the tangible investments that I've talked about, like capitalism, money investments. But there are plenty of intangible benefits to investing in yourself as well, like feeling more confident in your life. And what's cool is that in feeling more confident in your life, this like intangible return on your investment, it actually helps to create tangible returns on the investment, like feeling empowered to ask for a raise or negotiate your salary. So think about how you think best. Do you think best by going for drives, taking walks, writing in a journal? However you think best, what I want you to think about is, how can you invest in yourself? And if you're willing to share, please by all means leave it in the comments. But I want you to think about that, and it could be anything. It could be, asking for a raise, applying for a job. It could be something more intangible where you're, like investing in your confidence, investing in how you feel about yourself. But whatever it is, like I said, I would love to, if you're comfortable sharing, I would love hearing what you came up with. And if you want help brainstorming on how you might be able to invest in yourself, and maybe even some support in investing in yourself, I'll leave a link down in the description for that free 50-minute session that I mentioned earlier. And the last thing is that there is actually a whole series. If you liked the sort of more tactical, ROI, money-making sort of stuff, there's a whole series that I made that I call Coins to Comfort, which is all about how to go from having very little money to making way more money. That is based on my experience, both personally and working with clients. And if you'd like to check that out, I'll leave a link that'll either pop up here or down in the description, depending on where you're watching this, to that playlist. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you next time. Bye!